Welcome back, folks. For the first time in nearly a month, to a very special Saturday episode of #AskGSM here today. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and like I talked about my latest video blog that went up on Friday, my laptop was shot for many weeks. I finally got a new one on Thursday, so I figured, well, first and foremost, I tried to film this video, and all these questions that I'm going to be posting in this video were from the 19th of October that you guys sent in for that episode. I did film it before my computer just completely shot down on me. But when I tried to transfer the file to a new computer, it didn't go through the right way, so I couldn't post the video. So I figured before we get back on track with #AskGSM on Monday, and you guys can send in your questions on Twitter at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. You can leave a comment in the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or the wall itself. Or you can leave a comment on this very video. I'll be sure to include it in Monday's episode. So anyway, before we get back on track with Monday's new episode, I figured I would, answer your questions that you sent in. Otherwise, this is technically the lost episode with your questions from many weeks ago. So our first edition of #AskGSM since Columbus Day. But anyway, guys, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for staying subscribed to the channel, liking, commenting, and sharing these videos. Very much appreciated. So let's get right down to it with your questions from several weeks ago. Some of them might be outdated, but I thought some of them were very, very good, and it would be a crime not to answer them. And I did already answer these once before, like I said, but the video file got lost. So we'll try it once more again. So Brad S. from YouTube, push, repackage, and release. Always love these kind of questions, as I always say, so be sure to send them in. Push, repackage, and release Christian, William Regal, and CM Punk. Now, the best part about this question, the reason why it's so funny is that because Brad S. obviously knows me, and that these three guys are my top three favorite wrestlers ever. William Regal being 1, Punk being 2, Christian being 3. So it's hard, obviously, to push, repackage, and release one. So putting my bias aside, I would push Punk. Obviously, of these three guys, how could you not push Punk? The guy's the biggest moneymaker out of all of them, biggest superstar out of all of them. I'd be remiss not to push CM Punk. The other two are kind of interchangeable. You can repackage Regal or repackage Christian. It doesn't really matter. I went with repackage Christian and release Regal. I think if you were to have the two, I don't know if we're talking in their prime or right now. Let's say right now. Regal, of the two, both of them are inactive. Christian has been, quote-unquote, retired by WWE. Regal is inactive due to a neck surgery. He's pretty much retired too. But of the two, I would just repackage Christian. I don't know how you could repackage him, but I feel like you could probably get more out of him at this stage in his career than William Regal, who is all but done. He was doing a great job as the GM of NXT and behind the scenes as a recruit for the WWE. So I would release Regal as a wrestler, maybe repackage Regal. I'm not really sure. It's a really hard question. Like I said, they're very interchangeable. But if we're talking wrestler-wise here, I would fire Regal, repackage Christian. But if we're talking about fire from the company, I would get rid of Christian and keep Regal because he's done so much for WWE and NXT behind the scenes that you would have to keep him between him and Christian. Hector S. also repackage, push, and release Hulk Hogan, John Cena, and Stone Cold. There really isn't a wrong answer, but the ones that I wrote down here, I put push, Stone Cold. Of the three of them, they're all money makers. Hogan, which one generated more money between Hogan and Stone Cold in their respective primes? It's really up for debate. I couldn't really tell you that as a fact. I would just push Stone Cold because he was the hottest thing going, and Hulk Hogan is always wrestling. Of the two, again, Cena and Hogan are very interchangeable in this respect. I would release Cena and repackage Hogan because Hogan was wrestling. Stone Cold and Hogan are probably more known than Cena, or maybe Cena is more well-known amongst the masses in the general public than Stone Cold. Like I said, they're all interchangeable. It's very subjective. But I would push Stone Cold, the biggest moneymaker for the company in his time, so you would have to keep him around. Repackage Hogan because although he had a great 30-year tenure in the WWE, or more or less, they could have gotten so much more mileage out of him as a heel. He really dried up as a babyface towards the end of his run in 1993, 1994, but they really could have done a lot more with him in WWE as a heel had he stuck around and then whatever he did with the NWO in the WWE. John Cena is basically the same exact situation. I feel like they could probably get more mileage out of him as a heel. He's done everything as a babyface. He's feud with everyone as a babyface, turning him heel. And I know all the charity stuff, I get that, but turning him heel will freshen up the character, freshen up some feuds, and I don't know if he would be any more over, like people would start cheering him now. I'm not really sure how that would work, but I would repackage Hogan, release Cena, and push Stone Cold. Like I said, very subjective. It's going to be a different answer for everyone that you ask. Hector's second question, name 5 of the most underrated wrestlers in your opinion. So I don't know if you're talking about all time. That would be a very difficult question to answer. So I'm just going to go with top 5 underrated right now. Miz, I call him underrated. I think a better word to use would be underutilized than underrated. But I say that because I know he's a former WWE champion. That's not the reason why I include him amongst these Elite 5. It's just because I feel like they could probably be doing more with him. He has a great Hollywood gimmick. He gets great heat. He knows how to be a heel. He doesn't try to go for a cheap pop from the audience. He's not the most amazing worker in the world from a wrestling standpoint, but as a character, I feel like they could be doing a lot more with him, make him mean more, put him in a feud of the babyface that could be probably put over, like a Sami Zayn if he were to come back, or something along those lines. They could be doing more with The Miz, in my opinion. Damien Sandow, same exact thing. Almost not exactly, because Miz is at least on television. Sandow hasn't been on Raw in fucking 5 or 6 months. I think the guy was last on Monday Night Raw, which is ridiculous, considering how over he was a year ago as Damien Mizdow. But, again, not the greatest worker in the world. He's probably a better wrestler than Miz. But Sandow has so much to offer that WWE just isn't doing anything with him. It's ridiculous. The guy is so entertaining in whatever role they put him in, but he doesn't even have a role right now because he's not even on TV. Not even on Superstars or Main Event. The guy's not on any programs, period. And it's not like they're trying to come up with a new idea for him. They just have nothing for him. Creative has nothing, period. With this guy, it's ridiculous. So Miz, Sandow, Wade Barrett, King Barrett, Wade Barrett, Bad News Barrett, whatever the hell you want to call him. Vastly underrated. I know some people, realize that he probably should be pushed higher up the card. I know he's 2015 King of the Ring, but let's face it, that was a total bust. They booked the guy to look like a complete loser over the past 6 months. But nevertheless, a great mic worker, a very good in-ring worker as well, and was at the peak of his push 5 years ago when he was feuding with John Cena and Randy Orton and was involved in WWE title chase, main events like pay-per-views. But after that, they never really found the right role for Barrett. They put him in the core and tried the brawler thing, which I thought was cool, but they never really booked it the right way. The Bad News thing got over, but they didn't turn him babyface. Like all this different stuff. I feel like he is very, very underrated. Could he be a world champion at this point of his career? It's really up for debate. I still say no. I want to hold out hope and say yes, but with only one world championship and the way they're booking that guy right now, I don't really feel like there's a chance they're ever going to give him the push that he deserves towards the main event level. So Barrett I would call underrated. Luke Harper is so underrated. Probably the single most underrated guy in the entire company. I know people, fans like us, the hardcore fan base, the IWC, whatever the hell you want to call us, we realize how underrated this guy is, how great of a wrestler Luke Harper is. But when you really think about it, as a heel, he doesn't really do all that he can do because he's not trying to go for cheers, But he's a guy that if you put him in there and just let him go all out, he's going to have an amazing match with, regardless of whoever's in the ring with. But so far from what we've seen of him, from him in the last 2 years that he's been with the Wyatt family in WWE, on the main roster, whatever, the guy has shown great potential as a single star. They never really booked his push right when he split from the Wyatt family last year. His title reign was a complete bust. He lost all of his matches, and he lost the belt in a month. He had the belt for a cup of coffee. And then after that, it was nothing. But I feel like Luke Harper is so underrated, so great in the ring, and they could really be doing. I think he's great in the Wyatt family with his look. And but from what we've seen of him so far on the mic and in the ring, I feel like he could be a big star for that company if they found the right role for him beyond the Wyatt family. And finally, Emma, I feel like is vastly underrated. She is very, very good in the ring. They're finally starting to use her right, much less in NXT. Which is amazing, but on the main roster, they never got her right. As a babyface, they just had her completely fail when she was put with Santino Marella. That is the kiss of death right there. When you were put with Santino from the get-go on the main roster, you were doomed to fail. And that's exactly what happened to Emma. People just after a while didn't care. They didn't do her dance. And I think turning heel and going down to NXT again was the best thing that could have possibly happened to her. So I'm so happy that she's finally revitalizing her career, but she's another girl on the main roster they could be doing so much more with, especially right now in the midst of this Divas revolution. So, and his third question was, what do you prefer, one last Stone Cold match or a full year run of The Rock? So you're saying full year run. So are we talking about full time here or with The Rock? Or, truth be told, I know a lot of people say they want to see more of The Rock. I do too, but not like an everyday type deal. Not in every single week like a John Cena-like schedule. We don't need to see The Rock work those kind of schedules. We don't need to see Brock Lesnar work that kind of schedule where he's on Raw every single week, wrestling every single week. He loses his specialness. The Rock is an attraction. Brock Lesnar is a spectacle. Keep them that way. They would still be special if they were on Raw every single week, but it's not the same. They would just become another rundown, tired version of, John Cena. That's why he's so polarizing compared, according to WWE, because he's on Raw every single week. He's so overexposed. That's why people pop and get excited for The Rock and Brock Lesnar and Taker and guys like that, because they're not overexposed, and you see them so rarely. That's why they feel special every single time you see them on WWE TV. So I would definitely go and absolutely would go with one last Stone Cold match. I don't know how much he could really do at this point in his career. I know he said in the past that if he wanted to, and he's pretty much shut the door on one last match at this point, but if he wanted to, he probably could go in there and have one last really, really good match. And it depends. Would it be something that's taken seriously, like a match with John Cena or CM Punk or whatever? Or would it be a comedy match, or like a tag team match where he's limited and he's only doing a few things and he's not working a real match? Either way, even if it was a match against like The Miz or Heath Slater or something dumb like that, would absolutely love to see it because it gives him one last match. And I know his last match was technically at WrestleMania 19. I would like to see it. Of those two options, have it be a more serious tone, have the match take on a more serious tone and be literally one final match of WrestleMania 32. This is it. We're done. One and done. One final match with the Rattlesnake. So yeah, I would definitely go with one last Stone Cold match because, having been a fan since '08, I never really got the chance to see a Stone Cold match in WWE. And one full year of The Rock, I really don't need to see. We kind of saw that in 2011, 2012, 2013 when he came back every now and again. If you're talking about full-time, The Rock doesn't need to be full-time. He's The Rock. He feels special. He can appear more often. Absolutely agree on that front, but he doesn't need to be here every single week. That's why I get, not frustrated, but I kind of get confused when people say, oh, he said he would never leave, but then he left again. He's still a part of the WWE family. He's plugging their shit on Twitter and stuff like that, people that other alumni are not currently doing, I just feel like with The Rock, he doesn't need to be here every single week to add to the roster because they need to start building up younger guys. So I feel like his schedule is perfect. Same with Brock Lesnar. The first KFC from YouTube, his question was, how would you book Rusev moving forward? And this was from a couple weeks ago, probably before he started teaming with Barrett and Sheamus. I love that alliance. I love the trio of Rusev, Barrett, and Sheamus. So I would just pair him with them. When Lana comes back, maybe you do a babyface type deal because he's not going to be in the main event anymore. Let's face it. I think someone else asked the question about that. I'll get to that when I get to it. But Rusev is, I don't want to say he's damaged goods. He's only been here for a little over a year, year and a half. He's not, damaged beyond belief to the point where they can't do anything with him anymore. But at this period in time, people just don't simply take him seriously as a main event threat. They don't, because he lost to John Cena for 3 consecutive pay-per-views. He was involved in a throwaway feud to Dolph Ziggler for close to 5 or 6 fucking months. Did nothing for anybody. One of the worst feuds I've ever witnessed in my 7 years as a wrestling fan. Right now, he's probably good as a mid-card heel. But I think the best role for him right now, or at least when he comes back from his injury in a couple weeks, is to be put with Sheamus and Barrett. I think all three of those guys have great chemistry. Maybe do a New Day-like deal where they win the belts and they do the the Freebird rule, Freebird, New Day rule, where all three guys have the championship. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, I would book Rusev with those guys. Otherwise, what else do you do with him right now? I know he's injured, but when he comes back, he's not a main event level guy. I think that ship sailed at WrestleMania when he lost to John Cena. And he lost again to John Cena at Extreme Rules, and he lost again to John Cena at Payback. One loss is fine, but then when you have the guy lose time and time and time again, it got to the point where people just stopped caring. Jack Swagger, they tried. He became an ultimate loser too, and the guy came back and was in a world title match at WrestleMania. I'm not saying it can't be done, but especially with one brand, one world championship. Technically, we have 2 brands, but without the brand split, with only one world championship, there's no way Rusev's going to get another shot at superstardom as long as he's being booked the way he currently is as a loser. So maybe when Lana comes back, you try that babyface-like deal, but for right now, I would keep him with Barrett and Sheamus. And nothing's stopping him from appearing on TV. Remember when he hurt his leg or his ankle or something earlier this year and he was still on TV regardless? So they could still do stuff with him, so I don't understand why they don't have him appear in the corner at ringside during Barrett and Sheamus' matches as a tag team. I don't know if his injury is that serious. I'm not exactly sure, but when he comes back, I would love to see him resume their relationship with Barrett and Sheamus. The next question of his, when should Bayley get called up to the main roster? Right now I would keep her down in NXT. I also desperately, like everyone else, want to see her on Raw and SmackDown. Technically, it's a demotion because the women are so much better booked in NXT than they are on the main roster, but at some point, let's face it, people, it's so cool to see, Sasha Banks on Raw. She's one of the best parts of Raw, when she's on it anyway. She's not always on it, unfortunately. But although NXT is the be-all, end-all of women's wrestling, and I absolutely understand that, I feel like seeing her on Raw and the reactions that she gets and the more money she makes and stuff like that off merchandise and exposure is awesome. So, I don't want to be selfish and stay down in NXT and say that, but moving up to the main roster is, from a creative standpoint, a demotion, but a promotion in the sense of making more money and more exposure and more name value and stuff like that, But back to Bayley, though. She will be in the main roster, I would say, probably right after WrestleMania when she drops the belt to whoever, whether it be Asuka, not Eva Marie. I really hope that's over. I really hope they've really given up on that. I said a couple weeks ago, let's wait and see. Let's test the waters with Eva Marie in the ring and see how far she comes in a couple months. She's been back in the ring for like 3 or 4 or 5 months now, and she has not improved at all. Maybe ever so slightly, but her last match in NXT this past week was fucking awful. She is gorgeous. She looks like $1 million, but she is just absolutely terrible in the ring. They need to find another role for her. She is just not good. Have her be a manager. She's coming into her own as a character. She's getting more comfortable in the ring on promo. She's still not great, and it's not saying much to say that she's improved from where she was before she started training, but she's probably much better off as a valet that either doesn't speak or as a manager or just in the ring. She's just not cutting it for me or most people. So hopefully she's not the one to take the belt off Bayley. Getting back to my original point, they need to still build up that women's division in NXT after Becky left, after Sasha left, and after Charlotte left. That's a huge gap to fill in the women's division in NXT. Granted, they brought in Asuka, they brought in Nia Jax, and all these other new women. But it's still... The division is great, but they still need to start building up new wrestlers, new fresh faces in the women's division in NXT that can work and carry their own. Bayley, as well as Asuka, are far and away the best workers the division has right now. But other than those two, if Bayley was to get called up tomorrow, you just have Asuka, then everyone else. Nia Jax is far from good at this point. She's getting better, but I've only seen 2 matches of hers, but she still needs a lot of work to do in the ring. And then as well as Alexa Bliss, she's improved a lot too, but she's not exactly at Bayley's level. She's getting there, but she's not quite there yet. Carmella, still very much a work in progress. Eva Marie already talked about her. So they need Bayley as the cornerstone of that division until these other women start to improve at the level where they can carry their own in the ring, they can hold their own in the ring, and Bayley can move on to bigger and better things, hopefully anyway, on the main roster. Andre G, his question was, moving on to the Facebook questions here, rumors are that Shane McMahon is returning back to the company in 2016. What are your thoughts, and have you read any of these rumors? I have not. I don't know where you read that or where you heard that. Not saying they're not true, I just haven't really heard that. But I've said before that Shane McMahon will be back. He's the fucking son of the chairman of the company. He's Vince McMahon's son. He will be back. Maybe not in a wrestling role, but I feel like he will be back as, a one-off or as a character, maybe not a full-time run, but even an appearance in a Rumble or a one-off appearance on Raw for some, 30th anniversary special or something like that. We will definitely see Shane McMahon in the company on an on-air role again, even if it's for a one-off. And he has said that in the past before. He just said now is not the right time, but he will be back at some point. Whether it be in 2016 or not, I'm shocked it's been 5 or 6 years. He's currently busy with other projects, but I am shocked that it's been 5 or 6 years since we saw him, that we last saw him on Raw in like May of 2009, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I have not read the rumors, but I would love to see Shane O'Mac back on WWE TV. I know he recently took a picture of with Batista at the Spectra premiere, so if you want to check that out and see what he's looking like these days, looks almost exactly like his father, but I'm sure if called upon, he could still do a match if he wanted to, or if WWE wanted him to, but I don't know if he'll return next year, but Shane McMahon will definitely be back on a non-air role. Again, like I said, if only for a one-off at some point, whether it be sooner or later, he will be back at some point. Almost guarantee you of that. His second question, what would you do with the lower-tier wrestlers like Heath Slater, Damian Sandow, Curtis Axel, etc.? Every company needs jobbers. Not everyone can get a push. I feel like with guys like Heath Slater, he's right where he should be. But that's not to say You know, even the Attitude Era had jobbers, but they had characters. And even though they were losers, people still cared about them. Like, what do I know about Neville? What do I know about Heath Slater other than he's been in like 5 factions? What do I know about Damian Sandow? The guy's not even a jobber because the guy's not even on fucking TV. If he doesn't even lose a match, can he technically be considered a jobber? You know, but anyway, Curtis Axel could probably be better positioned on the card. But Heath Slater, I've always said, he's a very talented dude. But he's not going to be a mid-card guy or an upper mid-card guy, God forbid. The guy's right where he should be. Just give him more character development so people care about him. Same thing with Zack Ryder, more character development. They can still be jobbers. They can still be lower-tier wrestlers. Every company needs them. But they can also have characters. That's something that I feel WWE can work on with all of their roster. Just give them characters that the crowd can care about and connect with. And his third question, who do you see winning the Royal Rumble? I mean, this question obviously got thrown into disarray. He asked it a couple weeks ago, but after the whole Seth Rollins injury, who do I see winning the Rumble and whatever? At this point, Roman Reigns, if he gets screwed over again at Survivor Series and he continues to chase the World Championship, I can see that, but I really don't want to see that. I just don't like the idea of people winning back-to-back years or winning twice if they don't need to. I was not a fan of Cena winning twice or Batista winning twice. I'm a fan of Batista, but really, was that necessary? He could have gotten that title shot without winning the Rumble. But anyway, as of right now, Dean Ambrose might be my pick. I know he's not ideal for most people, but the Shield triple threat is pretty much out of the window because Rollins is injured. But so with that said, I don't think Ambrose has a likelier chance of winning the Rumble now. But either Reigns again is something I don't really want to see, but it's a possibility. Ambrose maybe. I'm trying to think of other people. Maybe a Brock Lesnar. Again, I'm not really high on people winning twice, but he has to get back in the title picture somehow. And maybe he returns in the Rumble and wins and goes on to WrestleMania to face Rollins. Obviously not Rollins, but faces Reigns again with the roles being reversed this time. I'm not really sure. With Reigns as a heel, Lesnar as a babyface. But yeah, so my top 3 picks as of right now are Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Brock Lesnar. Moving on to the other Facebook questions, Mark S. His question was, what would be your opinion about Alexa Bliss moving on to the main roster? Could she be the next AJ Lee, maybe if she got a similar big finishing move? Moving on to the main roster right now, absolutely not. I think she will be at some point. She's come a long way as a character. She's a great heel. She really knows how to work a microphone. She's getting better in the ring. That's her in-ring skills have definitely improved over the last couple of years since she made her debut in NXT. Right now, absolutely not. She's not ready. Like I said, I would give Bayley the call-up over anyone right now in the women's division in NXT. But at some point, definitely. And the AJ Lee comparison is interesting. I have not heard that one before, but I could definitely see where you're coming from. AJ Lee was AJ Lee. She was not the second coming of anyone. I feel like Alexa Bliss, I could see the comparison with the similar size, and they're both very small, but she needs a better... I mean, she has a good finisher, the backwards moonsault or whatever, off the top rope, which is cool. Maybe she might need another finisher that she could do out of nowhere that she just need to set up for. But other than that, though, I feel like she could be successful on the main roster if they continue to allow her to improve and develop her character. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see her as next AJ Lee. I see her as the first Alexa Bliss. AJ was not a great mic worker when she first came into the company. Alexa Bliss has improved faster in the mic than AJ ever did when she came into the company. It was like 2 or 3 years before she could cut a decent promo. Alexa Bliss... I mean, it's also been 2 or 3 years too, but she's really a great mic worker and is awesome as a heel. So I don't know if she's the next AJ Lee, but I do see her finding some success in the main roster if they can book her properly. His second question, who would you like to see The Undertaker face at WrestleMania 32? Is there any opponent from the other wrestling companies like TNA, Japanese Pro Wrestling, etc., that you would like to see The Undertaker face at WrestleMania? Same question regarding Brock Lesnar. So for The Undertaker, who do I want to see him face next year? I feel like there's only real 2 possibilities. John Cena or Sting. I want to see it be Sting, selfishly speaking, because I feel like that's a match that could still draw money for this company. I know, they're 2 old farts, whatever. I definitely see that argument, but the match could be shit, not denying that, but I feel like the story is there. The build could be there. People would care to see. I know Sting is now like 0-2 on pay-per-view, but maybe he wins. I really have no idea. But I would still love to see the match at WrestleMania. It is, whether you want to admit it or not, is still a money match in 2015, in my opinion. But the other opponent being John Cena. It's, again, another money match that we've not seen before at WrestleMania. What else do you do with Undertaker WrestleMania? I don't want to see another Wyatt match. The match was good, but there's really no reason to do it again. They're going to be doing something similar at Survivor Series. No reason to do it again at WrestleMania, unless Wyatt wins, but even then I don't really want to see it. I feel like it's a waste of Undertaker. But who else? There really is not many other options that make the most sense to face Undertaker again next year. So I would probably go with John Cena, but preferably Sting. For Brock Lesnar, I would have said Seth Rollins, because maybe if he gets back in the title picture in time for WrestleMania and he wins the belt back at WrestleMania from Rollins and we get the rematch in Battleground, I can kind of see that. But obviously Rollins is hurt. He's no longer the champion, so that's not going to happen. I've said before, and people have criticized my option in saying that Sheamus would be a good opponent for Lesnar at WrestleMania, but I do see why that would not be a WrestleMania-level match, especially right now, considering Sheamus is a loser. He's like glorified mid-card guy. That's not a WrestleMania-like match, especially for a guy of the caliber of Brock Lesnar. Maybe Randy Orton. I think Orton and Lesnar at WrestleMania 32 would be awesome. If he's not involved in the title picture, Lesnar that is, I think Orton and Wyatt would be a logical choice to do at WrestleMania, considering, in storyline, the Wyatt family injured Randy Orton. He won't be back until right around WrestleMania time. So you could probably do that if you wanted to. But yeah, I think for Brock Lesnar, either Orton or, who was the other guy I just mentioned? And Rollins is gone. And Sheamus, maybe, but that's not really a WrestleMania-like match. I don't really know. Rock has been thrown around, but I think the match could be good. I love their SummerSlam 02 match, but I just don't see why it would be necessary. Lesnar has really yet to be truly defeated since breaking the streak. Would Rock be the first one to do that? Could he really benefit from it? Not really a fan. Or Roman Reigns, like I said before. If Roman Reigns is champion, maybe you have the roles reversed with Roman Reigns as the heel champion, Brock Lesnar as the babyface challenger. You can do that if you want to. Would love to see something like that. So yeah, Roman Reigns, Rock, Orton, long shot being Sheamus. And his third question, how would you like to see Sheamus cash in his Money in the Bank contract, and when, and who would you like to see him, and when would you like to see him cash in, and would you like to see him be successful? So like I talked about in my video blog yesterday in regards to Rollins' injury and how long he'll be out, and should Sheamus cash in, absolutely fucking not. So like I said before, I like Sheamus as a heel. I think he's so much better as a heel than he is as a babyface. But there is no reason to put the belt on him right now, much less at all. But I think to have Roman Reigns win the belt at Survivor Series, only to have Sheamus cash in, or same with Undertaker, I don't think a majority of the audience really wants to see that. So I'm just going to pass on Sheamus cashing in at any point in the near future, just at all, just if ever, having him cash in. So I just don't really want to see him be successful, because I don't really need to see WWE Champion Sheamus right now. I don't think it really is something. They have done such a piss-poor job of building that guy up that no one wants to see him as WWE Champion. He is not on that level. He is not a top heel caliber performer right now. Maybe at some point he was a good babyface world champion back in 2012, but right now the guy is a loser. He's great in the tag team with Barrett, but as a main event singles guy, top heel, absolutely fucking not. So hopefully he doesn't cash in at Survivor Series or at any point in the near future. And should he be successful, unsuccessful? Definitely unsuccessful. People just do not buy him as a legitimate threat. Maybe he loses the briefcase. I don't know, but he should not cash in successfully, or at least not right now, if ever, because people just don't see him. People don't care to see Sheamus as world champion at all. Vince, I think, is the only one that really sees him as a main event level caliber performer, but no, I don't think Sheamus should cash in successfully. Mitch G, also from Facebook, should the Usos be immediately put back in the championship picture upon Jay's return? I mean, this was from a couple weeks ago, but they returned this past week on Raw. They beat the New Day back-to-back. I think they eliminated both Kofi and Xavier Woods in the Survivor Series Elimination Tag Team match. So, yeah, it looks like they will be put back in the title picture now that they're back, and I would reckon to guess that we will see the Usos versus the New Day for the WWE Tag Team titles at Survivor Series. And the second question was, do you think Fandango should have turned face after Curtis Axel replaced him and won the Intercontinental Championship at Payback 2013 and possibly feuded with him for the title? So, yeah, I think that probably would have been the best idea, because they kind of fought Fandango's popularity. I know that it was more so his theme song that was over than Fandango himself. But when he came back, he was nothing. When he came back from injury, I think absolutely he would have won that belt at Payback. That was really the reason why he was involved in that championship match at Payback, was because he was going to win that championship. No doubt in my mind. That's why Axel won, because Fandango was supposed to win the belt at that pay-per-view. But yeah, so would I, when, now that, whatever. I'm going back to what I was saying before. I'm completely tongue-twisted here. Yeah, I would have turned Fandango babyface and done a feud between them for the title, because at least when he came back, people still kind of cared about Fandango. But as a heel, when he came back, he was just like, oh, it's Fandango. Don't give a shit about this guy. I think as a babyface, and they turned him babyface 2 years too late. I know he's a face now, but no one gives a shit about this guy. So, yeah, I would have turned him face at that point when he was still at least somewhat popular, and had him feud with Axel for the championship. I wouldn't have had him beat Axel for the title, but it would have been a fine feud because Fandango was at least still somewhat over at that period of time, in time. So moving on now to the Twitter questions. That Sean Mark Istic, his question was, push, repackage, and release Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and Cesaro. I think I've answered this before, but I would push Owens. I feel like he is a money main event heel waiting to happen, so I would push him. Repackage Rollins into a babyface when he comes back, and release Cesaro, because of those three guys, I feel like WWE just does not see him being a money player for this company. He could be, he should be, but he's not WWE, or at least in Vince's eyes, he's not a main event level caliber performer. So I think of those two, he's probably not going to get further in the company, so I would release him, repackage Rollins into a babyface, and push Kevin Owens towards the main event. The second question, in your opinion, do you think Sheamus will cash in successfully? Already answered that. At Cody Collier 37, do you think he'll cash in on Seth Rollins this Sunday? This was before Hell in a Cell. He obviously didn't. I don't think Sheamus should cash in at all, much less successfully, because I don't think, like I said earlier, he would make for a viable world heavyweight, or a viable top heel / world champion at this period in time. And Cody's second question, push, repackage, and release the primetime players, the Dudley Boys, and the New Day. So I would push the Dudley Boys. The only reason why I say that is repackage New Day to kind of give them clear-cut characters. Because recently they've been very aggressive, and then they go back to doing the kind of, oh, we're just fooling around, we're just joking. So just keep with one clear-cut character. I would repackage them in that respect. Push the Dudley Boys because they're over. People care about them. They should be involved in the title picture. So I would push them, repackage the New Day. And I like the primetime players, hashtag millions of dollars, but of the three teams, they don't offer as much, so I would release them. At Swagzio, his question was, who is one NXT superstar that you hope does not make it to the main roster? I'm pretty sure I've answered this question before. It might have been from you at Swagzio. I'm not sure, but I know I answered it a while ago. So I think originally I said Mojo Rawley, and that still stands true. I don't really want to see him in the main roster. He's not that good. If he's with Zack Ryder, then maybe. If they're a tag team in the main roster, then I'm all fine with that. But otherwise, he should not be in the main roster. So in any case, I said Dana Brooke here. I just don't think she's there yet. I'm not a Dana Brooke fan. We know nothing about her. They're shining some light on her on the Breaking Ground show, which is great. But in NXT, I just don't give a shit about her because she's not great in the ring. She's getting better. But as a character, I really have nothing to connect with other than the whole touching thing, which, like I've said before, just does nothing for me. And then I put Sylvester LaFour because the guy is he's just there. He's just a manager, I guess. He hasn't been on TV in forever. Marcus Louis, same thing. The guy is awful. So hopefully he never makes it to Raw and SmackDown. So LaFour, Marcus Louis, and to an extent Dana Brooke. Until she shows me something else other than the Breaking Ground stuff, she should not be in the main roster right now. Maybe down the line once she gets better and she hones her character and she gives us a reason to care about her more, but right now she's not main roster ready whatsoever. At E13A, has it ever bothered you how much WWE storylines with women tie back to jealousy? Absolutely. That's all WWE knows how to do with these women. I'm jealous of you because you have the championship. I'm jealous of you because you have Fandango. You have the man. It's just so cut and dry with the women. I mean, cut and dry in the respect that it's not really cut and dry. I guess it's the wrong word choice because it's so complicated when it doesn't need to be. The whole Paige turns heel on Charlotte, but we're still friends, but I'm jealous of you, and I'm going to attack Natalya even though I'm still a babyface, and I'm going to officially turn heel this week, so now you can boo me. It's so fucking confusing, and it just ruins any real momentum that these women have going. I think Paige, now that she's finally turned heel, thank God, hopefully we can finally get the full Paige heel run that we should have gotten the first time. And I'm talking about last year, too. She was very back and forth at that point, too, and it was very fucking confusing. That whole feud with AJ was very disappointing. But yeah, I think it's ridiculous. there should be more layers to these women other than, oh, I'm jealous of you because you have the title. I'm jealous of you because you have the man. The NXT Women's Division is a prime example of how you book women. And that's not a bold statement on my part. It's obviously very obvious. Obviously very obvious. It's very apparent what their strategy, their formulas work. I'm going to beat you because I want to be the fucking best that I can be. I want to fucking win that title because I want to be the best. And that's it. I'm not jealous of you because you have that belt. I respect you. Sasha and Bayley, prime example. They had animosity towards one another, but they didn't hate each other. They weren't pulling at each other's hair. They weren't like, oh, you're fake because you got fake tits and all this. Like, who fucking cares? I hate that kind of shit. It's so annoying and it absolutely bothers me. On the main roster, we're kind of moving away from that, but the whole jealousy thing is so stupid. That's all they know how to do with the women on the main roster. In NXT, it's about respect and wanting to be the best. That's it. It's so cut and dry, it's simple, and it's effective. That's what the main roster can learn from the NXT women, among many things. But first and foremost, how to book a fucking feud and not making it over jealousy 99% of the time. His second question, how long should the Vaudevillains hold the NXT Tag Team titles for, and who should beat them for that? They'll be defending the belts against the Mechanics this Wednesday on the show. I'm not going to spoil anything, but looks like they won't be champions for too much longer. I don't read spoilers. Someone spoiled it for me, unfortunately. I don't think anyone tweeted me. I think I saw it somewhere by accident. But anyway, I feel like Gable and Jordan, like I've said before, should and will be tag team champions before long. Enzo and Cass, that ship sailed, unfortunately. Maybe at some point further down the line, but there's so many other great tag teams. Whether it be the Mechanics or Jordan and Gable, both teams that really have what it takes. More so Jordan and Gable, but the Mechanics have grown on me. They're a good tag team too. A lot of great chemistry, but Jordan and Gable should be tag team champions, whether it be as baby faces or heels or whatever, before long, maybe by early 2016. And his third question, which wrestler today could have a nice, healthy WWE career without winning any championships? Now, I say Wyatt, because I feel like he is this generation's Jake the Snake Roberts, never held one title. It's not to say he doesn't deserve one. I do feel like Bray Wyatt does deserve to hold title gold at some point. But his character, from a character perspective, his motivation has never been title gold. It's never been championship gold. It's always been, I want to haunt you or whatever it is. He always loses, so he really has no motivation other than scaring people, then ultimately losing to them when it matters most. But anyway, yeah, so I feel like Wyatt, the character, doesn't really need a title, but Wyatt, the guy, I feel like he's so great in his role that he does deserve a championship run at some point. So yeah, I say Wyatt because he is like this generation's Jake the Snake Roberts, where I don't need to see him holding a belt, but he does deserve one, I feel like, at some point. And his fourth and final question here, do you think TNA will ever overcome its internet punching bag status? I don't think so, because even when they finally get something going, the product is great, it's enjoyable. Take 2012, for example. And I hate the shit on TNA, but it's just, not that it's easy, but it's hard not to. When you have a fucking program that's consistent of a world title series that no one gives two shits about, everyone involved, 75% of the people involved just don't deserve to be in there. All their star power is pretty much gone, other than Angle and Jeff Hardy and maybe EC3 and a few others. But other than that, the roster is depleted. A lot of great talent, but they're just not what they used to be. But going back to what I was saying before, 2012 I feel like was the prime example of a year for TNA. That way everything was going great. I wrote articles on Bleacher Report why TNA is doing better than WWE. Not financially, of course, but from a creative standpoint, TNA was outshining WWE for several weeks in 2012. For the entire summer, I thought TNA was doing better creatively than WWE. But then when people were like, oh, I'll kind of give it a shot when then TNA fucks up again, which is more often than not, unfortunately, because they have a clown running that company. People go back to bashing it like, oh, I knew all along they were going to fail. So no, I don't feel like, especially now that they're almost when they're almost done, when they're on the verge of closing their doors, unfortunately. Don't want to see anyone out of a job, but TNA, should they go out of business? No. Do they deserve to go out of business? They do. After all the dumb decisions they made after Dixie Carter's run the fucking company into the ground, she absolutely deserves what's coming to her. But I don't want to see anyone out of a job. But going back to what I was saying before, especially with everything that's going on right now with TNA, I don't think they will ever overcome that status of being the internet punching bag. And there's people shitting on it because hating on TNA is the cool thing to do. I still watch TNA. I know my reviews do not always reflect my enjoyment of the product, but I've been saying all fucking year that TNA had a very great, strong line of TV. Their TV was very, very good, but up until the summer, that's when kind of things got a little shaky, and they lost their way. I don't know where it was. I can't pinpoint an exact week, an exact month, an exact day where TNA just jumped the ship creatively, but right now I just don't care. And I'm watching it because I have to review it for my website, and there's a few people there that I care about. Bobby Roode, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, and that's it. There's really not many other people in that company. EC3 too, but other than that, there's not really many people in that company that I particularly care for or consider one of my favorites. At Daniel Cabeza 59, have you read the Daniel Bryan book? Is there going to be a review anytime soon? So I have not yet read it. I bought it over the summer for the autograph signing, for the book signing that I was unable to make, unfortunately, because I had my wisdom teeth taken out, which was awful. But, yeah, the Daniel Bryan book, I'm looking forward to reading it. I just don't have time, unfortunately. I'm so busy during the week with school stuff, with article stuff, and everything else going on. So I don't really have time, unfortunately. But when I do get time, hopefully in the near future, like I said with the Hulk Hogan book review, whenever I read a book, a wrestler autobiography like Daniel Bryan's or Jericho's or whoever's, I will read it and I will review it for this very channel. Be sure to include it when I'm done reading it. So probably not anytime soon. I have not even yet started Daniel Bryan's book. I'm hoping to start Y2J's book before I start Bryan's because I got it earlier than I did Bryan's book. But when I'm done with that book, it should be up. Hopefully, when I'm finished reading it, which could be next month, next year. Well, there's really no timetable, but I will let you know on Twitter with updates and stuff if there will be a book review of one of these books and I'm finished reading whenever I'm done reading them. His second question: which is your favorite Royal Rumble match and why? So easily either 2010 or 2011. Because both of them I have very fond memories of. Like I've said before, the 2010 Royal Rumble was my first ever pay-per-view that I ordered. That was the first pay-per-view I ordered, period, of any pay-per-view ever. And I really, really enjoyed it. I just remember sitting in my aunt's house watching that pay-per-view. And the match itself I thought was very, very fun. You had a lot of great stories going on. Again, that's something the Royal Rumbles recently have been missing. The stories. The 2010 Royal Rumble was so fun. You had CM Punk come out for the first half of the match, cut a promo before getting eliminated by Triple H. And the whole thing with Shawn Michaels wanting to go to WrestleMania and win the world title. Batista was trying to avenge, trying to get back in the title picture. Same thing with John Cena. Edge returned. You had the story going on with him and Jericho. There are a lot of different stories going on in that Royal Rumble. That the legacy thing, them trying to please Randy Orton, their leader, and they wanted to win the Rumble for him, which did not come to fruition. There's so many stories going on in the Rumble, so I either love that one. I'm torn between that Rumble and the 2011 Royal Rumble. I know a lot of people were not a fan of the 40-man concept, but I thought it was good, and I thought they filled it up well. Better than a lot of the more recent Rumbles. Not as many stories going on, but you had the Nexus thing, the core thing going on, John Cena trying to go on to WrestleMania, Miz eliminating John Cena. So you had a few different stories. Del Rio won, so I thought that was a really good Rumble. I love watching it every single year. The returns of Booker T and Kevin Nash were also awesome. So yeah, I would probably either say, I can't tell you right now, but my favorite Rumble match is stuck between either the 2010 Rumble or the 2011 Royal Rumble. His next question, do you think that ESPN made a bad move on deciding to cover the best moments on Raw when Raw is doing horrible? So he asked us a couple weeks ago before the quality of Raw kind of got bumped up a little bit. So now that the quality of Raw, and it might have been just for the last 2 weeks, maybe on Raw, this Monday's Raw could be complete shit. But with the Rollins injury, I'm sure they're going to have to panic and get things together and start switching up their plans and whatever. So I'm pretty sure that Raw, the quality of Raw should be exciting going forward. I mean, let's hope so, fingers crossed, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think it's good. Regardless of whether the product is good or bad, more exposure for WWE is a good thing, a very good thing, especially with ESPN, which has been always kind of WWE. It's not been one of those networks that treats it like, oh, it's just fake entertainment. No, they treat it like sports entertainment. They try to take it seriously, not like it's real or anything, but they realize the worth of what WWE is, and they understand it, I guess is the perfect word to use. And any exposure for the company is great. So I think it's great that they're doing that with ESPN. I've yet to watch the episodes because they air at the same time we do Wrestle Rant Radio on Tuesday, so I've yet to see it. But I think it's great that they're doing it, and any relationship between the two companies is awesome. His next question, who is the better heel in 1997, Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart? Man, that's a really tough question. I would go with Bret Hart because at least he was attempting to get heat, which is weird because I know Bret Hart said in the Wrestling with Shadows documentary, I watched that about a year ago. Watch it soon because I know we're coming up on the, almost 18-year anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob. But, you can watch it on the anniversary of the Screwjob if you want. But, yeah, I think it's great. I think at that point anyway, Bret Hart was, had a very great way of looking at it. Although he was the perennial babyface, he really wanted to do anything to change with the times, make people hate him, even though he didn't want to be a heel. He wanted to be that babyface that people had always known him as, be a role model. Shawn Michaels was great as a heel too, but he was they didn't care about eliciting heat, him and the rest of D-Generation X. They just wanted to be funny and did whatever pleased them. So he was a very good heel. I thought he was a better heel in like 92, 93, 94 as a singles heel than he was at this point, when he was really teetering the line. More entertaining probably, but not a great heel when it came to eliciting heel heat and making people hate him. So I would go with Bret Hart, because at least with like the pipe bomb promo, so to speak, in March of that year when he went off in the U.S. and went off on Vince McMahon, and that whole thing was great. That was a real way to elicit heat, and he really went all the way with the character, kind of taking his real-life aggression, his real-life frustration, and relaying it onto his on-air character. So I would go with Bret Hart. Shawn Michaels isn't too far behind, but I thought Bret Hart was not very, tweener, like I'll try to cheer you, I'll try to do whatever the people want me to do, or do whatever makes me happy. He tried to elicit heat. He really had the crowd turn against him. So I would go with Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, over Shawn Michaels, being the better heel in 1997. At Reborn again, with Big Cass being injured, what do you think this means for Enzo? I think Cass is still wrestling, from what I've heard. I think the injury might not be too serious. I heard he broke his leg, but I don't know what the injury is, to be honest with you. I think Enzo broke his leg a couple years ago, but anyway, I think Enzo can fare better on his own than Big Cass ever could. When Enzo was injured a couple years ago, like I just mentioned, Cass really floundered. They tried to do something with him in Aiden English. They tried to put those two in a feud, but it didn't really go anywhere, and it just didn't really work. I think Enzo on his own, he's not the greatest in-ring worker, but he can really entertain an audience with his mic skills alone. So could Big Cass, but I think Big Cass is better off with Enzo than Enzo is without Big Cass. They're a perfect unit. They should never be broken up. But let's say if they were split tomorrow, who would have more success as a singles guy? I know Big Cass is bigger, and that's what Vince looks for in guys. But Enzo is so much more entertaining, so I'd probably go with Enzo. But yeah, for right now, Enzo will probably be kept off TV for the most part. Big Cass was on TV and floundering. Unless they relegate him to a jobber role, which I can kind of see. I hope it doesn't happen, but I can kind of see that. I could see him just being taken off TV altogether until Big Cass is cleared to compete, which hopefully should be soon. If he's still wrestling on the indies, or still wrestling on the house show circuit, but his in-ring work is limited, then I could probably see him being back sooner rather than later at 100%. And his next question, who would you have Brock Lesnar face at WrestleMania 32? Like I said earlier, Rollins is off the table. Would have loved to see that. Batista I did not mention earlier. I wrote that down here, but I forgot to mention earlier. Would be a dream match of mine. I don't know how likely it is or what the storyline would be. I know they're the class of '02. But that would be a great match to do, Batista and Brock Lesnar right now, especially given that Batista is so hot coming off Guardians of the Galaxy and 007. So that would be awesome to see. Who else did I say earlier? Brock Lesnar. Kevin Owens would be nice. I just don't feel like they'll push him that aggressively to the point where he would be ready for a match with Brock Lesnar in time for WrestleMania 32. So I don't really see that happening. But yeah, probably, or Roman Reigns, like I said earlier, with the roles reversed. Not ideal, but I could see that happening. The Rock's another possibility. So yeah, Batista, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton is another guy, like I said earlier. Or, so yeah, Batista, Orton, Roman Reigns, or The Rock are all possibilities that we could see at WrestleMania 32 for Brock Lesnar. A lot of different routes they could take with the Beast Incarnate come next spring. And his next question, do you think the Divas division can be rebuilt in time to mean anything at WrestleMania? I think it's possible. It's going to need some work, but if the last 2 weeks have been any indication, Paige having a very strong heel turn on Raw, and the following it up with an awesome Fatal 4-Way, it's possible. It's going to take some more just in a great match on Raw to really make people care and invest in the Divas division. But with Charlotte as champion, doing the logical feud with her and Paige, and maybe moving Banks in the title picture in time for WrestleMania. And like I said earlier, I've said this before on Wrestle Rant Radio, but to do Banks and Charlotte at WrestleMania would be amazing. They could do that, if not a triple threat with Becky or a fatal four-way with Becky and Bayley, would be fantastic. One of my favorite women's matches of all year, with the exception of the one in Brooklyn, was that fatal four-way at that special back in February in the NXT, which was amazing, with Charlotte, Banks, Becky, and Bayley. But yeah, so I think it can be done. It's only November, so I think the division can be built up in time for WrestleMania 32, but they need to keep it consistent. It can't be like, oh, like when they were first called up, when Charlotte, Becky, and Bayley Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha Banks were first called up a couple months ago. One of the greatest moments, period, on Raw this year alone. And then they fucked it up by just doing 6 women tag team matches every single week. So they need to keep the momentum consistent, keep it going, and make people invest in carrying the Divas division in time for WrestleMania 32 in just a couple more months. At Scarlet1, do you think Dolph Ziggler will ever make it as a top babyface? And their 2 cents were, if the U.S. Open Challenge proved anything, it's that Dolph Ziggler just isn't ever going to be the guy we all like. His appeal is bumping around like a madman, being a jerk who takes shortcuts, and generally acting like a bigger deal than he actually is. He's just more natural. He's just more natural, raking Cena's eyes for a near fall. So I guess what they're kind of getting at is that, will Dolph Ziggler ever be a top babyface? So let's go back to a year ago at Survivor Series 2014. The guy picks up the biggest win, arguably, of his career, other than cashing in the Money in the Bank after WrestleMania 29. In the main event of Survivor Series last year, puts the Authority out of power, only for the Authority to come back the following month, and then Ziggler was back to being a mid-card guy, lost the IC title, and went back to being exactly what he is now. And he's even worse off now, coming off that terrible, terrible, terrible feud with with Rusev, that did nothing for him, or Rusev, or Lana, or for Summer Rae, or for anyone for that matter. So, yeah, I think Dolph Ziggler, like you said, he's just not cut out to be a top babyface. Maybe a top heel, but people really have a hard time booing him. I think as a heel, he could talk. He's still great in the ring regardless. But like you said, he really comes off as very, very smug more often than not, and just backstage stuff, and as a character, it's just really hard to connect with that and see him as a top babyface with that current character. So I think a heel turn could be in the works. But as a top babyface, I don't think he's ever really going to cut it. So no, I don't really see him ever being a top babyface, and it's for the reasons like you mentioned, because he's just not the guy that we really want him to be, that underdog-like character. He really has not changed much since he was to show up a couple years ago. He's that same guy, the exact same guy, just that he's very, very smug, full of himself, and people are like, not very likable. He's not a likable character, but he's still great in the ring, so I'll love him anyway. You know what I mean? So a heel turn could be in the works. It should be in the works. But it's just that I feel Ziggler should be a heel. I think he's destined to be a better heel than he is a babyface. He's so likable. He gets great reactions, but he's never going to get above a certain level as a babyface. Probably the same thing could be said as a heel too, but as a babyface with the current character that he has, with the lack of character development since he turned babyface a couple of years ago, he's better off as a heel at this point in time, in my opinion. Their second question, do you think the big criticism over the women crying and hugging over the past few TakeOver matches is justified? I don't really see the big deal. If you do it all the time and you're breaking kayfabe all the time, then yeah, I can see that being an issue. But in Brooklyn and after the Respect special, when Bayley and Banks were crying and they reunited with the Four Horsewomen, it was an amazing moment because it's so far and few between. We rarely, if ever, see that with the women. So as long as you don't break kayfabe, I mean, kayfabe's dead, let's face it, people. But as long as you don't do it every single week, like, oh, Banks, I love you, Bayley, every single week, and I love you, Bayley, let's just have this match just because, and she's not really acting like the heel. Banks is a great heel because she tries to turn the crowd against her. So, no, I don't think there really is a big criticism. I don't really care too much. I mean, I loved it, but I'm not saying I care, like, oh, I was upset over the fact that Banks and Bayley were hugging it out and crying. Like, they deserved it. After all the history those two women have, and after everything they've been through, and Banks getting officially called up to the main roster, it was a great final goodbye to Sasha Banks in NXT. So, not a big deal. I think people should just really get over it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. There's other things to be upset about, people, trust me. Their third question, apparently Vince is mad that Rusev and Lana's engagement got reported online and spoiling kayfabe. Isn't this rather irrational given how Stephanie and Triple H's daughter and son-in-law have been barely keeping their alignments in check. Aren't they spoiling kayfabe too? Example, their Twitter bios say they play a bad guy on TV. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. Vince, if they were getting heat for it, Rusev and Lana, that is, for spoiling their engagement online, TMZ was in their house. If you look at the TMZ article that leaked the news about their engagement, they obviously had to get some sort of lead. There was a picture of Rusev and Lana near their bedside. I think they were in bed when they took that picture. So they obviously got led in by either Rusev and Lana or WWE. There shouldn't be any heat. Like you said, Triple H and Stephanie are not clear-cut heels. They're not clear-cut baby faces. They're just the authority, which is fucking bullshit. This has been going on for months. This has been going on for years since they first joined forces on WWE TV. Stephanie and Triple H. It's ridiculous. They play to the crowd. You see Triple H dancing and cheering, then he acts like a heel the next week. He's not consistent with his character. And they're not the only ones. A lot of people are very, they're not very black and white. They're in that grayish area where they embrace the crowd. They're still a heel, so they should not be blamed for it. I don't think they got too much heat because Rusev's still, he got injured, but it's not like he was jobbing on Superstars. You know what I mean? So it could have been a lot worse. But I absolutely agree. There was a huge, huge double standard there with Rusev and Lana spoiling their engagement, yet Triple H and Stephanie act like, they're great people. I mean, they are great people, but they just completely act like they're not heels on the show. So, huge double standard, and I hope they didn't get too much heat over it after everyone else does the same exact thing. The Bellas, they were feuding last year, and they shared a Twitter. That's a prime example. That still pisses me off to this day. But anyway, their final question here. Lastly, does WWE just have no idea what to do with the Rusev, Lana, Ziggler, and Summer storyline? So, they asked us a couple of weeks ago before they blew it off after, before Rusev got hurt and whatever, and Summer moved down to Tyler Breeze. So it looks like it doesn't even matter anymore. They did have no idea what to do with it, but I'm just happy to say it's over and that all four people can move on to bigger and better things because they were all worse off because of it than they were with it. Rusev's injured. Ziggler, I don't know what the hell he's doing. Oh, he's feuding with Breeze right now. Lana's hurt and Summer's with Breeze. So at least you have something going on with it. With at least two of those four people. Lana's hurt, Rusev's hurt. Maybe they come back as a babyface duo in a couple months or so. I would be completely fine with that. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of #AskYouSam. Like I said earlier, the Saturday special, which is not normal for those new viewers. Episode 101 here today. 102 will be on Monday. So send in your questions starting right now, today, tomorrow, Monday morning if you want. I'll be filming these, as I always do, on Monday afternoons. So you can send in your questions by tweeting me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.usam.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights, tomorrow, as of this is when it's being put up on the YouTube channel. Or you can leave a comment on the wall itself. Be sure to leave a comment in this very video. I'll be sure to leave your question and include your question in next week's episode. So like I said earlier, guys, thank you for bearing with me these last couple weeks, and we got through it. I got my new laptop. #AskYouSam will be back to being weekly starting Monday. We got this episode up today. New episode again on Monday, so you got double the trouble in 48 hours time. Lucky you guys. Lucky me for being able to film it. I love doing these videos, and thank you guys for your continued support. So be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. You guys are awesome. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.